right, welcome in, folks, to the Can We Kick It podcast. I'm your co-host Mike, along with Chuck here.
Hey.
Going on, Chuck?
Not much, man. How's that bubbly?
Oh, it's delicious. How's that monster going for you?
It's like kind of like bubbling out my stomach and ripping, up my intestines, but it's tasty.
Yeah, you add it with bottle caps on top. That should be a nice combo.
Yeah, I'm gonna be feeling great later.
Yeah, fizzing all day.
I need to get some Pop Rocks and throw them in there too.
Yeah, right. Why not?
Yeah, I'm like Roman. I'm a child.
That's right. Yeah.
Never emotionally evolved past the age of 10.
Yeah, I mean, he's post-grieved, so it's fine.
Yeah. Well, he's post-grieved now.
Yeah.
His pre-grieve didn't go so well.
I am pre-grieving tonight, having no succession. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, thanks. Now I'm gonna go into a depressive state for the rest of the show.
Stay away from
No
the water.
Hunter Wave, no Succession, no Barry. I guess I could watch Idol
Yeah. Holding out on that
for
one.
the Idol.
Yeah. That'd give you time to get caught up on Silo and Jury Duty,
Yeah.
which is hilarious. There's some new things coming. Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked about some of it last week, right? Righteous Gemstones coming out.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's Blanca's like, what are y'all going to talk about now? I'm like, well, got to wrap up Barry, we got to wrap up Lasso, Silo, and then figure something out.
Yeah. Just wait for something to come on.
Yeah, but some good stuff coming. But
Yeah, for sure.
today we're gonna do Ted Lasso and Barry.
Yeah, both series finales. Ted Lasso, pretty sure it's
Maybe.
a series finale. Yeah, but at least in the current form that it is. So let's talk Ted Lasso first, right? So this was the series finale, it's season 3 finale, potentially series finale, episode 12. Pretty long season, I guess.
Yeah, was it each season 12 episodes?
Except for the first. The first was 10.
First was 10, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I really liked how and we'll give a little recap, but I really liked how it kind of reverse mirrored the end of the first season. When they were relegated, they had that glimmer of hope they were staying up, and then Jamie Tartt scored for Man City at the last minute to relegate them. And then this time they score in the last, an extra time. And it has all four of them looking at the field and you're like, oh shit, it's gonna happen. Like they're gonna go down and tie it up and then they're gonna
Yeah.
but then they don't, they win, but then you see like in real life, Man City's gonna win the Premier League anyway.
Which they did.
So I think that was, and I'm glad they brought the Champions League thing into it because it reminded me of just like, the goal of most Premier League teams is to get in the top 4, top 6, so they can get the Champions League or UEFA or the Europa League.
Yeah, the Europa League. Yep.
So top 6, you get the extra games, extra revenue. That's like a hugely important thing. So, and they touch on that in the episode about how we qualify for the Champions League. Now our value's up and we're going to get, we can sell part of the team and raise more money for players and blah, blah, blah. So,
yeah, it's the ultimate goal, right? More games, more money.
Yeah. So I think with the finale in particular, it was interesting. So I didn't even think about this through all 3 seasons, but apparently fans on Twitter were shipping Rebecca and Ted.
That was a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And as I loved how at the beginning of the episode, they were like, Ted's like wakes up at her house and
Are we going to talk about last night? Yeah.
And then you're like, and then it's kind of like Ed Beard and his girlfriend are there too. It's kind of like hey, we get your theory, but this is not what or we get what you want, but this is not what it's about.
Yeah. This ain't that kind of love show. Yeah.
Yeah, I never felt that. I never felt any romantic connection with them throughout the whole show. So I don't.
It was a stretch for sure. I mean, I had seen this stuff on Twitter and Instagram, and it was definitely like the odds on that plus 2,000. I mean, there's just no way that they were going to ship that after everything like Rebecca went through and stuff like that. So, um, yeah,
When
that's
even
how
how
the
much you see Ted is still in love with his ex-wife.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I have questions about that at the end for sure. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, you talked about the episode open right with they're at so the penultimate episode ended with Ted telling Rebecca basically like I have something that's groundbreaking that I have to tell you, like she used to. And then it opens up right this episode with them at Rebecca's house. Ted comes down, makes you think they like slept together, hooked up, whatever.
yeah,
And then like Beard comes down, and then his girlfriend and Beard is in like a fucking banana sling, which is
that's
hilarious.
classic. Yeah,
Yeah, and they don't want to talk about it. Apparently, like Ted and Beard's place are being fumigated. And then the maid walks in and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna start in the guest bedroom." And
hey,
Beard and his girlfriend are like, "Oh, no, there's shit in there
no,
that's not
no,
trash." Yeah,
no.
it was a hilarious cold open. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it was a
yeah.
good.
They
And
they caught on to people really trying to ship the Ted Rebecca stuff, and we're like, not so fast. Yeah.
yeah, and then you see Nate's back as the assistant to the kit man, which was a good ode to The Office. I love that
Yes.
they said
So good.
he said assistant to. Um, and we can talk about Nate in a little bit because there's a whole interesting thing there. But um, I love like the so I was telling Blanca this because I love the court um, part in the locker room
Oh,
with
amazing.
yeah. So we did this in college as well, like and as part of professional teams. So we didn't have monetary fines because we were poor, but like so we would have a court at the like once a week during practice, like as we are warming up and stretching. And so someone could call somebody out and then accuse them of something. And a lot of most of the time it was someone being late to practice or doing something, whatever. And so my senior year I was captain, and so we got to hand out the punishments. And one of our favorite thing was called the gauntlet,
Mm.
and where we had like 30 or 40 people in the soccer program. So if someone was late to practice and we gave them the gauntlet, you'd line up with two rows, like 10 feet apart from each other, and everybody had a ball. And the person would have to run through, and everybody just kick the shit out of the ball and try to hit. Usually, half the time you'd hit, you know,
The
the other
other
people on the other
guy.
side.
Yeah.
But like, I just remember when there was this kid, Justin Shaw, in our program, and like tall and like long hair. And like one time he's running the gauntlet for being late to practice or something. And I think I hit him with a ball here. His head went this way, and someone on the other side, the ball goes, and his head just snapped back. I could still see that in my head in slow motion. It's like,
That is amazing.
but you can't do that shit now.
Oh
But
no.
like, but that was such a real moment in the show for me because I'm like, this was part of the thing. Someone was late, or you'd assign them, you know, you'd have a court session every week, and the captains would keep track, or someone would keep track and bring up about that, and they would have to, run a mile or do some kind of punishment. So that was fun. I really like that. I just love the how McAdoo and you know, dressed like how he was and stuff like that. But
Oh, dude,
um,
yeah, wearing the powdered wig and everything, like everything he did, like that was center room in the locker room,
yeah,
just was
yeah, yeah, yeah,
hilarious.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. The Christmas thing, the Santa Claus thing. I mean,
yeah, cutting hair, like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
now he's the judge. It was just amazing. Yeah,
yeah. It's funny because he's like a really great job as like the captain role, but as far as looking like a footballer in the show, like out on the pitch, is like the least looking footballer. Like Jamie Tart and Danny Rojas, like the actor was a professional football player,
yeah,
and Jamie Tart looks like Jack Grealish on Man City. He's a little chunkier, but like rest of the team looks like footballers. But McAdoo, like, is just he's too boxy.
yeah.
It's, but
It's
but
so
yeah,
funny.
I really like he does a really good job in the show overall, and he's just funny, and his character is great. But
Yep.
um, Yeah, and then they have Kiwi comes in. Jamie, Roy sees Jamie like he's getting her to go to Brazil for his Nike photo shoot, and
Uh-huh. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Roy, yeah, Roy sees it, and then Roy invites him for a beer. They're both in love with her, and leads to them fighting, and then going to their house to let her choose which one.
Couple of
I
schmucks.
and it's interesting because I think there's some debate about in this season the lack of explanation of things that I was reading about online, like a lot of stuff with Nate, and then but I think this was well done in particular here because I don't want to hear her reasoning why they're both idiots. We both know the audience knows two guys going to the house saying, you can choose one of us is like the dumbest thing in the world, and they
Yeah.
recognize it right
You're
afterwards. Like,
both gonna
oh
lose. Like we all know
yeah,
how this fucking works. Yeah.
yeah. Even if she likes one of you, she's not gonna, you know, do that. But
Yeah.
um, so that was kind of. I'm glad it kind of worked out that way because I don't know. I like Roy and Jamie's friendship more than I do either one of them with Keely. Maybe I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
They've become friends where it's like now you put a relationship, between the two of
yeah,
them, it's not going to work out. So I think that's the way they wanted it to go was like, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. Bros before hoes.
yeah,
But
yeah, and they both they both hoed down with her already. So
yeah,
you
I
know,
did like the callback to season one, episode one, where she walks into the locker room and she's like covering her eyes and he's like, everybody decent? And
yeah,
she's like,
yeah,
oh, one day. Like
yeah,
really good callbacks. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. A lot of good little callbacks, a lot of good parallels versus the first season.
Yep.
um,
Yeah. And we see
what
like,
a
so we finally see the table, right? For the league. And
yes,
Man City's up and Richmond are in second place. Hilariously ridiculous, in my opinion. But we finally got a reveal that they're in second place, and they're like what 1 point behind Man City,
yeah.
so they
And
have to
West Ham
win.
is in fifth, trying
Yeah,
to fight for a Champions League spot.
yeah,
Yeah, they have to win, and Man City has to. I think pretty much lose. I don't remember seeing the goal differential, but like if
yeah.
well, no, they're 1 point behind. So if Man City tie or lose,
Tie.
they're done. Like
Yep.
no, so Richmond wins and Man City loses or tie, Richmond would jump them, right? So Man City, what they win. We just saw in the show they go up 1-0, and we never hear anything about it to the end until we find
Yeah,
out what happens. But
I do like how
um,
they like portrayed that like everybody's phone went off in the stadium. I've been in college football games where that happens and the whole place goes nuts.
no, I'll give you. Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I was watching the Bundesliga last Sunday or Saturday, and Dortmund was down 2-0. Dortmund was leading the league, and Bayern was second, and they were down 2-0. Bayern was winning, and then whoever they were playing scored, FC
Yep.
Cologne, and made a 1-1, and the whole stadium is going nuts. And because if Bayern tied, Dortmund would still win the league. But then Dortmund scored, made it 2-1. Then they made it 2-2. Bayern scored like in the 90th minute, and you just see the fans like, I mean, there's just show is that's the most amazing thing in the highs and lows of sports, right? So
Like in this day of instant information to get
yeah,
like updates on what's actually happening is something like
yeah,
could you imagine like 30, 40 years ago being at a game and being on the brink of winning and be like, oh, I gotta wait till I like get out of here to hear it like at the pub or
yeah.
something like that.
Well, I mean, I think like when they had Olympics in other countries, you wouldn't even hear back till like days later
Oh
sometimes. So
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, we have information at our fingertips. It's great.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so we don't see. I mean, we kind of get straight. Well, we get we get the whole Rupert. Rupert's been accused of sexual misconduct with
Yep.
secretary and
His wife is
is getting
divorcing him again.
divorced.
Yeah.
Yeah, and two backs down. Um, we have that storyline, and then Rebecca, uh, Leslie is telling him about that he can sell half, or she can sell half the team, 49%, bringing money because they've qualified Champions League. And then Trent Crin is giving Ted and Beard copies of his book called
Yeah.
The Lasso Way.
Yeah.
And I love that, like, Beard is just like going through marking everything, derivative. Uh,
Trent's like, I gotta get out of here. Yeah.
I really like Trent Crin, and I'm glad. I'm kind of, well, it's another. We can talk character by character, I think, because I got some thoughts on each character and how
Yeah.
it's shaped out. But um, we get to the game, and Rupert's there. The new coach of West Ham after Nate left is Richmond's old coach,
Yeah.
Nut
Ballsy
Nut.
McHangen. Yeah.
uh, yeah, and
Yeah. Rupert looking all of like the Emperor from Star Wars with his leather trench coat and all this shit. Like,
it's yeah. This is it's funny how Nate and Rupert became these supervillains,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden Nate. We'll go into this more because I have thoughts on it. Nate just comes back in with no repercussions, but Rupert is still like, even. I'm sure they did this on purpose because Sudeikis is like my age or a little older, and it's like it's just Darth Vader walking. Like, you don't
Yeah.
even, the way the trench coat is hanging is like Darth Vader's cape moving through the air. Like, I don't even see his feet. Like, it's very Star Wars again.
Maybe Rupert thinks he's like the one, and maybe he's just going full Neo from the Matrix.
He looks like Neo as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Just an old Neo. Like, oh, dude, I don't think you think you're the hero in this.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like, Rupert's in the box. West Ham score first. Well, before the game,
Yeah,
when they
Rupert's
get
like
you never.
holding court with everybody. He's like, "Oh, good to see everybody." And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you are like on the fringe of your own social group. Like, fuck you.
Well, it's the people that are so unself-aware because they still people. He still has people hanging on to him, right?
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like the politicians that accuse one side of all being pedophiles, and then they get arrested for being a pedophile, right? Like, they're
Yeah.
just they're it's like so obtuse to what actually is going on, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what he's doing. And then in the locker room, Beard is playing like a scrapbook of memories right before the kickoff to get them like
Oh, that was
inspired.
brutal. Yeah.
It gets them crying. It was great commentary. They're crying during the player introduction, and
Yeah.
like Arlo White and Chris, whatever the other guy, are like, uh, interesting. I've never seen anybody. Have you ever cried during? I've cried during the match and after the match. I've also vomited.
Yeah. Never pregame though. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do
that
you
was
mind
funny
if
how
I
they
weep right now?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Do you
was funny
mind
how
if
they
I
did
vomit?
that. Yeah, we do get a moment before the match, like Nate apologizes to Ted.
Yeah.
I think after the players went out or whatever, but like he's like trying to apologize, and Ted's like, it's okay. And they like look at the believe sign and all that shit, and it's
Yeah.
not there. And there's no consequences for Nate. Oh no, he lost his Wonder Kid job. Oh, he has a girlfriend now and an Aston Martin. Fuck you. Like,
Well, I'm sure Rupert repoed that
yeah,
after he quit. So,
you're probably right about
um,
that. Yeah.
but yeah, then they start the game. I like a lot of football in there, even if it's dorky looking a lot of the time. But
Yeah.
um,
I like the top down view that they brought.
yeah, yeah,
I get that it was animated to some degree, but I liked it.
yeah,
I thought that was a really cool take that they hadn't done before. Yeah.
yeah. And I really think like it got a little better throughout the season, and like Danny Rojas's movement and some of Jamie Tartt's movement is very like almost football player looking or natural looking. Some of the other, watching McAdoo, storm up and down the pitch is goofy looking,
Yeah.
but um, it was they have some of the attack. West Ham scores, they score a second one before half, and so it's 2-0. And then they have this in the locker room. They all have pieces of the beliefs on, like, you know, McAdoo has it in his captain band.
Yeah,
Jamie
Sam
has
has it
it.
behind his Nigerian team
Yeah.
photo. Yeah. Yeah, Jamie had it
Colin
in the
has it
book
behind the
that
shin
Ted gave
guard.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's those things that I love about the show, like that, like the inspirational, and that's kind of like when we were talking during Succession, like the three finales that we watched this week. They're three different type of shows,
Yeah.
like a tragedy, a feel good, and like an extremely dark comedy. So
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
and they all end like their genre of the show, so they're not trying to do anything different with kind of their finale. Like,
Yeah.
they just Lasso just kind of yada yada's over some things, or it doesn't go into some depth that they did in the first two
Yeah.
seasons. But but they were trying to jam it so much. But I thought that was a good moment. They all pull out the little pieces and like tape it back together, and like much more inspiring for them going out in the second half, um, versus crying
Yeah. Oh
in
my
the
gosh.
first. And then they actually thought it was kind of funny that they hit the post like seven times before Jamie puts one
Yeah.
uh
In the back of the
upper
net.
upper
Yeah.
upper 90.
Yeah.
And so that was fun. And then they get the penalty kick, um which they didn't even go to VAR. Like, I mean, in
No.
life they would go to VAR and see the, I mean, if there's
Yeah, the only
contact,
person
if
who
there's
like
foul.
knows it's offsides is Ted for once. He's like, it's
Well, no,
offsides.
but before that offsides, the PK to make it 2-2, where McAdoo scores the PK,
Yeah, you're right.
and where Jamie Tart goes down with like slight contact, but that happens in the
Oh yeah.
Premier League all the time.
Yeah.
And then he gives the ball to Rojas, and Rojas gives it to McAdoo.
In what
And
world?
when there's no story, like, we don't.
Yeah.
It'd be different if during the whole thing, the whole show, we would be like, McAdoo's dreamed of taking a penalty, like, his whole
To win
life,
the
and
match or whatever.
yeah, or like there's been some reasoning why they gave it to him, or like he's like in practice they saw him like, putting holes through the net. There's no, in no reality would that happen
No.
unless there was a story behind it.
Yeah. It's his
So
last
like,
game. Let him have the shot. Like something. But like, oh hey, Jamie's not gonna do it. He's gonna give it to Danny, two of your best like goal scorers,
yeah.
and you're gonna give it to somebody who's never kicked a PK in his life.
Well, and they didn't even say like McAdoo's never scored a goal, but they said McAdoo's never taken a PK.
Yeah.
So okay, well, the majority of Premier League players have never taken a
No.
pre-K in a 90-minute like match, because on most teams you have like one or two players that are
Yeah.
going to
Designated
take
set
that.
pieces.
Now, if you go
Yeah.
into a PK situation, you're going to have five, and then you'll go with your, from there if you keep tying. But I mean, there would be no way it wouldn't have been Jamie or Danny, and the coach would have that determined before the game. Now, if there's backstory and like he had never scored a goal and he was retiring, and Manchester City were up 6-0, and
Yeah.
there was no way for them to win
Kick away.
first,
Yeah.
then it's a different story. But we don't. It kind of doesn't explain it.
No.
It was hilarious that he kicked it through the net and then he bloodied that guy's nose. Who, I was like, why are they showing this guy being an asshole at the ticket counter? And then like, who is this guy? And then it's like, oh, okay, that's the guy who got hit in the nose. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
When they were, yeah, yeah. So
Was there any more backstory to that? Because that we saw him right at the ticket counter when Colin's boyfriend like goes to get his
yeah, yeah.
ticket. Is that not the guy that Rebecca went out with? And and Roy was like, "Don't settle for okay," like, or he's great or
I think
whatever.
so. I think
And he
that
kind of
makes
turned out to be
sense.
an asshole.
I think, yeah, I didn't even notice that, but I think that makes sense too. Yeah.
Yeah. There were some weird callbacks on this episode. Yeah.
Well,
It
and then
it
at the penalty, the guy had the greyhound with the helmet on by the net
yeah,
again. Like,
like that was a Danny Rojas thing. That wasn't Captain. Like, yeah.
well, that
It
was
would
funny though. Like that, I was
yeah.
like, that was pretty clever. Because like a there'd be no way that they would have the dog anywhere near
Yeah.
the goal. Yeah.
It would have
So
made more sense had they had like Colin take the shot, right?
or Danny with the dog standing
With
by
the
the
dog.
goal.
Yeah, it's like Colin with like, oh, he wants to kiss his boyfriend after like they win this thing or whatever, and like there's more story there than there is for Isaac. I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Yeah,
All right. And then West Ham scores, but he's offsides, and Ted finally figured out the offsides rule. I still don't know how that was offsides or what. Like the whole play from a football fan perspective with Zorro coming out as far in the box as he
dude.
did
Yeah.
when there was Richmond players there. That would never. There was no like. It wasn't like a one-on-one and he's coming out. There was like players all around. It was a very
Well,
odd
that was my
thing.
thing. Is like he came out, and it was like, holy shit, is he out of like the goalkeeper box where like if he touches it, it's a PK?
Yeah, yeah.
I
Or
was
he
like,
would be red
oh my
carded and
god.
it would be a free kick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if he knew he could get there, he may come out and try to head it. But there was other Richmond defenders back there. But offsides is funny when a goalkeeper's ahead of the
Yeah.
player. So you
Yeah.
still have to have one player back. So, but it still never showed like I would like it to shown like how they in prem games with the VR line and show what exactly we're seeing as offsides. But
Yep.
that was another callback to like where Ted never knew what offsides is, and now he's laughing saying number 14 was offsides.
Yeah. He's the
He's
only
like,
one that sees it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and then they have
Yeah.
a free kick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Also, how they fouled Low or whatever the guy was dribbling the ball at the end, where they got a free kick for Richmond. Like he just grabs him and like kind of throws him, and he's really not in any threat.
No.
From it was a very odd foul from
Yeah.
a soccer perspective, but anyway. And then they turn like, "What player are we gonna run?" And Ted's like, "Nate, come here." It's
Yeah.
like
They're like
we've
what
been doing our own
the
thing all
lasso special,
season.
and it's like, oh
Yeah,
god, don't run the football play again for the American football play again for the love of God that you ran in first season. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
but they rely on Nate, who like they just take back without any explanation against his old team. You know, it could. I mean, it works, and they score. Which I mean, they should have Collins score because they really didn't use Sam much this season, except for the like political angle with the Nigerian refugees and the restaurant
Had
piece.
had to give him something
Um,
since he and Rebecca ain't winding up together.
but I mean, it almost makes sense for Colin to score
Yeah.
because then he ends up, kissing his wife like on the field.
Yeah.
And really, I don't think he scored all season,
No.
except for the only scoring he did on the field was that kiss
Yeah.
after the game.
Yeah, that's right. I did like, however, when they did the call for Nate's play, they were like, the Oscar goes to, he like handed him a little like statue, and then Ted was like, give me that. And he was like, he
Yeah.
like threw it over his shoulder, like, what the fuck? Like, so great at that shit. But and then
Well,
it
and
was a callback to like even like the
Jamie.
commercial that they did where he's like yelling, he's like, give me the ball, I want the ball, I want the ball. Like,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
really fun.
yeah. That was good. And Jamie. Yeah, I mean, it was good. They were over marking. We didn't talk about too Rupert coming down the field
Oh yeah.
and pushing the coach after the penalty.
Yeah, pretty sure
Um,
he's not gonna be able to get on the pitch.
yeah, there's no possibility he would have made it
No.
past security onto the pitch
Yeah.
through the tunnel, and the assistant referee would have got
That would have immediately
over
broken that
him,
up. Yeah.
and they would have given him a red card,
Yeah.
and he'd be permanently banned from the FA. I mean, he's gonna have to sell his team anyway. So
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, I mean, just it was interesting. But I
yeah.
see.
As soon as he's like took a step on the pitch, I was like, "There's no way they'd let him out of the tunnel, dude. There's no way. They don't even
Yeah,
let like managers text like or owners text managers during games, like in
yeah,
any sport. So like, what would make you think he's going to get on the pitch? I get it. It's all to make Rupert the ass. Like now everybody sees
yeah,
the asshole that he really is. Everybody's calling him wanker. It's vindication. I get it, but realistically, not gonna happen.
yeah. And I guess that's kind of like, hey, Nate is it's a Barry Berkman syndrome. Fuchs, the or Cousineau controlled Barry and forced him
Right.
into do this. And it's like, oh, Rupert mind controlled Nate as Darth Vader to make him become an asshole, and now
Yeah.
like, oh, he's not under a spell. He's nice Nate again.
Right.
But yeah, they. It's weird that the way they celebrate, and I mean, I get it for the effect of the show, but like if that's real life, they would know that because all the games play at the same time. So if there was still going on, Man City was still winning 1-0. After the game, they would probably put it up on the screen, like
Yeah.
in the stadium, so they can and the fans they can all see what happens. Then that way, if the other team tied them up, then they could go crazy afterwards. But
Yeah.
um, you know, it almost seemed the way they made them celebrate. It seemed like, oh, Man City must have lost, and then
Yeah. That's
yeah,
just for them to pull the rug out from under you. That was the whole purpose. Yeah. And I did
yeah,
like, the fans storm the field. I mean, we're used to that in America.
yeah,
But we saw recently with Wrexham, they got promoted, their fans stormed the field, cool shit like that. But
yeah.
yeah, they wound up still coming in second place.
Yeah, I mean it's Champions League spot, which is good,
Yeah,
especially when Man City wins in real life every year, so it's realistic.
yeah,
Um, and then we see Ted at the airport, apparently on the imaginary. Could this all be a dream sequence since there's no direct flights from London to Kansas City?
for sure.
I researched this the other day because I'm sitting there and it's like now boarding flight to Kansas City, and I'm like, okay, so there's a London to Kansas City. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Now boarding Emirates flight 373, direct flight to Kansas City. It's like never in the world would that happen. Yeah.
No, and listeners, I went and looked, and there's zero direct flights to Kansas City out of London. So unless it's only after the Premier League season ends, maybe I missed the timing. But
Maybe.
Ted going back home. Rebecca comes to the airport, and Rebecca and them had a talk. Rebecca was trying to stop him earlier, like they met in the stands, and she's saying goodbye, and she bought a first class ticket to
Force of habit.
to get there. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I mean,
Just to say
there's
goodbye.
a lot of
Yeah.
good funny moments. It's Ted
Yeah,
Lasso. It's
for sure.
heartwarming and funny. He gets on the plane, and Rebecca leaves the airport. And we see her run into the Amsterdam guy, which was a good callback. The daughter comes running and falls, and she goes up, and there he is as a pilot. And um, I think it harkens back to like the what you call it, the psychic,
Yeah.
because she wants kids, and this the beginning of the season, she's talking about like seeing if she get pregnant and all that kind of stuff, right? So, um, but and then Ted goes home, and you see Henry's waiting for him, and they open the door, and Michelle is standing to the side of the door, and there's no one else in there. So is she? Did Doctor Loser, who was
Talking mad shit during the
disinterested?
game.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like, first of all, you didn't fly Henry out to watch the match. And second of all, like your ex-wife's new boyfriend, who was your counselor, is like, oh, at least we'll get to see something happen. It's just talking mad shit. It's like she's gonna break up with him over a conversation. Come on, over some
yeah.
American jeering at football.
Well, if Ted Lasso is getting paid a lot of money as a Premier League coach, right? And this is the most important game of the year. and it's probably mid-May, mid to late May. And the kid's got to be towards the end of school. Like, just fly them out there.
Yeah.
Ted's mom came the week before. Send the kid with the mom.
Yeah.
The mom goes out there to tell him like Henry misses you. Fucking bring Henry with you. Finish the school virtually for the rest of the year.
Yep.
And we see at the end Henry needs some help on finishing, so maybe he could have trained with Richmond's like U10 team,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah. So yeah, maybe his ex-wife breaks up with her boyfriend, and there's a chance I don't like it. Whatever.
yeah,
Oh yeah, I did like that they brought back Sassy Smurf, Rebecca's friend, and she just was like
mm,
talking mad shit to Rupert. So good. Love her for that. Um, yeah, Rebecca sees her houseboat guy from Amsterdam. Oh yeah, Beard is gonna go back with Ted, and he like fakes like an appendix like rupture, like throws water on his face, and he's like starting screaming and shit. So funny.
leads to one of the best lines of the series. It's like, "Do you need your suitcase? It's just full of rice."
Yeah, it's just rice. I've been a week. I've been awake for 3 days, Ted.
Great. Weird Beard is the best.
So good.
Yeah, and the Ted like he's faking the appendix, and Ted's like other side, and he's like, "Oh," like because he's
Yeah, the
and
flight attendant.
the only part of the whole series where someone's like, "What an asshole," because like, "Do you want to go with your friend?" He's like, "No, I'm all right." It's like,
No,
asshole.
yeah, dude, that was so great. Yeah, and what he lands right, and he's at the airport or whatever, and then he bumps into that kid to take an Aussie, which is a
Yeah,
callback to season one. Also
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. He's like, "You're not staying." Like in the beginning, he's like, "You're mental," like for trying this, and now he's like,
yeah,
"Oh, you're the greatest coach ever," you know, and that was funny.
yep.
And then,
Rebecca winds up selling 49% to the fans
yeah,
instead of selling
yeah,
out, which I think what Leslie told her she could get like 2 billion for it.
yeah.
So
And Kiwi proposes a women's team,
yeah,
which nowadays I think all the Prem teams have women's teams.
I think so. Yeah,
Um, and then Beard, I don't know if this was a dream or not, but because Ted wakes up right after this, I think, but Beard gets married at Stonehenge and
and,
some mythical thing, but Ted's not there either.
yeah.
Like
I was
Ted
like
and
looking at the
Michelle
crowd. I
and
was like, is Ted in there? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
Ted and like Ted and would come back for that wedding. It's very
yeah.
odd, but and who was the chicks with Danny Ross? One look I thought at first was like that one like when they showed the brown haired one, I'm like, is that the girl who plays soccer in the
Mm,
court in the town? And then they're like, oh, there's a blonde girl, so I guess these are two random girls that
yeah, it's just Yeah, football is life, guys. Living,
yeah,
loving. Yeah,
yeah. So and then
and
we
then
see
yeah,
good.
the bald guy with the beard with the baby and the chick. Did you pick up who that was? Beard's Night Out. It was the chick who stole her lover's pants, and that was the guy who chased him. I had to look it up. I was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Yeah, it's Beard's Night Out. Yeah,
Yeah. And that could literally be Ted could be dreaming that on his flight. Because I
yeah.
think after that he kind of wakes up with turbulence on the plane. And then I think the last part, right, we see Ted coaching Henry. Michelle's in the stands, no boyfriend again. Um, he Henry misses and he calls him over and says, "Be a goldfish," and then it ends right.
Class. Yep. Oh yeah, we saw like we skipped over Roy is named the head coach of
Yeah,
Richmond instead of Nate. You got the
and
Wonder
Nate
Kid
is
as a steal. Yeah.
Nate's the assistant with Beard.
Yep.
So,
And yeah, Roy
but
starts seeing Dr. Sharon, the team psychologist or whatever officially.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of callbacks. So she was in the episode cheering for them as well during the game
Yep.
from her bed. wearing what
Uh,
looked like a Dallas Cowboys t-shirt.
yeah,
Got a star on it.
she would be. Sam ends up playing for Nigeria finally.
Yeah.
I guess Obasanya or the billionaire guy doesn't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, all
Um,
of a sudden he just forgets that he hates Sam. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
Rebecca have
uh,
him murdered or something.
yeah, right. Jamie's making amends with his dad, who's in rehab. Cool scene
Hmm.
there. The women's team proposed by Keeley. Uh, oh yeah, Ted leaves notes for Trent along with Beard, who has got like post-it notes all along the edge of the
Yeah.
like manuscript. And Ted wants him to change it to the Richmond way instead of the Lasso way.
Yeah, it's really great because he said it was never about me, right?
Yeah,
So I think, and then he does have the book signing, and it says the Richmond way on the book,
yeah,
so he
yeah.
changes it. So that's a good lead in to like we kind of get a glimpse of what happens next. So if there was a season four, if there is a season four, how would you want episode one to open up? Where would these characters be?
That's tough.
Or pick
They've lost.
one
They,
scenario.
they've lost their spark, right? Obviously, they have the downtime, right? And they're fighting for their way back in, and they somehow make the Champions League, right? Or they're in the Champions League. They somehow win the
Yeah,
Champions League. Some crazy shit. We get to see some. I did like. I wish I wanted to see more of. In the penultimate when they beat Man City, you saw Pep. I
yeah,
wanted to see more managers make cameos and stuff like that. You know me, big Jurgen Klopp fan. I'm sure he doesn't
yeah.
watch the shit, but yeah, I think it'd be cool to see some bigger cameos and stuff like that. Roy is the coach. Uh, I don't know. Where do you see these characters? Because like I could take this a million ways.
I think that's what's fun about it. You could take it a million ways, right? I mean, I think stylistically with the show, I think the way you said makes sense is if they're they're struggling. Um, Ted is back with Michelle and Henry, and um, Rebecca talks like when he's trying to talk Ted to get come back, he can get Michelle. She's like, I can get Michelle a job in London, blah blah blah. And Henry can go to great school. So I think like in reality, if they did a season four and Jason Sudeikis was back, it could be like mid season. Richmond are struggling. Um, they're already out of the Champions League, and they're like bottom. They're fighting for relegation, and but Ted and Michelle are together, and Michelle, like Rebecca gets Michelle transferred, and they come over, and Ted Lasso helps them stave off relegation. Right? I mean, that would make sense. I would prefer like the goofiest of scenarios, right? I mean, I think if they do go on with the show, that that Sudeikis is going to be gone, and then the show is going to kind of tank because
Yeah,
people like that. But to me, it'd be funny if Rebecca shows up to Ted and said, "I bought Sporting Kansas City, and I want you to coach the MLS team."
yeah,
Um, and he does that, and so it's like split between continents, and then AFC Richmond come over to play them in an exhibition game, and
oh yeah,
they beat them like 15-0, and just to prove how worthless MLS is compared
so
to.
good. Yeah,
I can't say that because Chelsea actually lost to like Orlando in like a just like one of the summer tour matches last year. I mean, it's
yeah,
just garbage. But
yeah. Ted is the manager for Sporting Kansas City, and Coach Beard's twin brother is his assistant. It's just the same character.
well, we were talking offline, so I'm going to bring the other theory is that they start the women's team, and there comes a scandal like a few years in because all the Richmond players are Rupert Manion's illegitimate daughters
Yeah,
that no one knew about. But Trent Krim goes back to like his investigative reporting and he finds all that out.
yeah,
and
so
at
good.
and then he does a heel turn and starts working for Rupert and starts like outing people and talking trash behind
Yeah,
Richmond's back. Um, yeah, Sam scores an own goal for Nigeria and gets murdered by a Topo Cuckoo or whatever the guy's name is. And she also kills Rebecca. He kills
It's like
Rebecca for
Saddam
like,
Hussein, like, oh, you fuck up, you're dead. Yeah. Holy shit, that'd be great.
yeah. No, I read something on Twitter. Someone was like, flash forward to the World Cup in 2026. Ted Lasso is coaching the U.S. men's national team, and Jamie Tart steps up to um, take like the World Cup winning penalty for England against the U.S. Like, I mean, there's some good stuff I
So
saw on Twitter about it, but
yeah.
um, so I don't know. I mean, it would probably be just something basic, like somehow they convince Ted to come back, and they bring his son and his wife, and now we introduce more characters, and now we're going through Michelle's work life, and um, I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't come back
Yeah.
at all.
Just
Um,
just let it lie. Yeah.
the only complaint I really about the series, because if I just watch it for what it is, which is like an uplifting kind of positive show, or a little bit study of like redemption and people working through their feelings and stuff like that. But because we don't understand how Nate's motivation. Well, we know his motivation is like his dad pushed him, was always pushing him, um, or his perception of his dad was pushing him. He didn't know how to be a dad or whatever, and was just like pushing him to be perfect. We didn't know until the last episode or second last episode of the third season that Nate was like a like genius violinist, you know. So
I had
there's
a
no
great theory about that, but yeah.
we knew that his dad had some kind of effect, but through the three seasons we had no idea anything else about Nate except for he's a kit man, right?
Yeah.
We knew Ted Lasso's dad died. We knew, you know, his mom was, and we find out more about that this season too. But we had sensed his mom, you know, they never dealt with it, and that kind of comes out. But we don't know really. We know Roy's background. He went to Sunderland as a teenager. We know Jamie's background with his dad. We know Rebecca's with Rupert and her mom. So it's just we don't know much about Nate, and so he turned this big heel turn there's stuff leading up to like he was feeling underappreciated. Like Ted brought in Roy, assistant coach, and then stopped like going to Nate. And then throughout the beginning of the season, he's just jabbing Ted like in press conferences and all
Yeah.
this. And then Rupert like messing around on his wife or being that way to women finally triggered Nate to have a turnaround. It it doesn't make a ton of sense, and they didn't dive deep enough into the to that turnaround. But I understand why, because we could add 17 episodes
Oh
in
yeah.
the season.
And that's a
But
part of like I think that's a part of also like the character of like Ted Lasso. We saw that like he took Beard in
yeah,
after he like was stole what a pound of meth or whatever it was. It was hilarious.
yeah,
And then stole Ted's car. But then like that's a part of Ted Lasso of being like giving people second chances regardless of what they do to him. And yet
yeah,
Ted has to grieve that shit, right? But I
yeah.
think it's ultimately like about redemption and second chances, regardless of what some people have done. And then they show you whether or not they've actually changed. And Beer changed because he's with Ted this long, and now Nate is supposedly changed because he's cool with being the assistant to the kit man of the traveling secretary. So I guess it works out. But us as humans, and I guess as non-Midwestern people, we're like, fuck that. Nate's gotta like he's gotta rue the day. And it's like, nah, he understood. I get it, but
Yeah. And I guess it was just so weird how they went. Like he left West Ham, and then the three guys show up at the restaurant, like, "Hey, we all talked, and we want you back." Like,
yeah,
just especially when their team is performing well, and how superstitious they are, and how superstitious athletes are.
yeah,
You're not going to throw in. I mean, he ended up becoming the kit man or
yeah,
assistant kit man, so it wasn't like he became part of the coaching staff and all that again. But it was just to me, it was like the one part of the story in the show where they kind of failed on. Um,
Second of
and I
all,
mean,
Nate's girlfriend wasn't in the stands at all that we saw. Like, I get that she's not into football and all that shit, but like, it's his first game back. Like, he's back with his team. They're on the. It's a
yeah,
big game. It's a big match.
I I read something on Vulture that was like, if if anybody wants to create the most boring and non consequential character in a TV show, they nailed it with Nate's girlfriend. It was something like that. It was just like, it was so true because she offered, like, the only thing we know is she was like from a certain part of Poland because Rupert picked that up from
Yeah,
like sexing all these Polish women apparently or whatever.
that's his hoe of choice. Yeah.
Oh god, I gotta find that Vulture thing I was reading. It was wild, man. It was just like,
Am I the only
yeah,
one
they
that
were.
thought that when Nate was playing the violin, they would just it would you would cut away from him playing and it would just be like notes, and then you'd see his dad coming home and he'd go upstairs and Nate would just be fucking hanging himself. Like, I half expected that shit. I'm not lying. Like, not saying he was gonna
Yeah.
die, but
You're trying to go the Kendall route, like Succession.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh shit.
Yeah, like, I mean, it was just, there was no um like, with her character, there was no motivation, or like, we don't know why she started to date Nate. Was it that like the supermodel left him on the date, like, and she felt sorry for him? Like, I mean, there's no, beside him being a sad puppy, not a slime puppy, but a sad puppy, you know.
Maybe she's just into Indian dudes.
I don't know. It was very interesting. What, I don't know. There's a lot of its flaws, but overall, it's a good show.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Hey, just let it be. Don't do a season 4. Don't try to create something out of something that's not there. You guys wrote it the way you did. Just let
Yeah,
this show be over. Don't ruin something that was great, not bad, okay. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Agreed. Any other thoughts on Ted Lasso?
One question for you: if anybody was to get a spinoff, who
Mm.
would it be?
Ooh, I'll tell you my preference. It would be Coach Beard having a spinoff, but it's like he has his own travel show and he just goes to different places in Europe and has like psychedelic experiences,
That'd be amazing.
and you just follow him around, like,
Yeah.
you know, there. I think the only other, I could maybe do a Roy and Jamie like buddy comedy, or
Back to
or
backs.
you do or you do like you do a women's team like show. You make Nate the coach of the women's team, and then every once in a while they run into Roy in the hall, or but it has to be kind of totally separate from the show. Like, if it ends up being like, it's called We Are Richmond or The Richmond Way, and it's got everybody but Ted Lasso, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
you know,
What was I just thinking of? Yeah, it's a Roy and Jamie buddy cop comedy. But basically it's the odd couple where Roy is just the angry asshole in the morning and Jamie's like, all right, I'm ready to and he's just like ready to go.
yeah. He's like, Jamie, did you drink all my fucking almond milk? Oh, hey, Nate.
Keely was over here last night. What did you do? Oh, you could
Keely, I
spin
know
three
you're in
seasons off
there.
of that.
Yeah.
I saw somebody saying a Trent Krim spinoff somehow. I don't know how they would do it, but that was in the top three that I saw.
I really like him evolution of the show. It
Yeah,
just even as like he went from like a very good reporter to a hippie journalist
yeah,
or hippie guy writing a book. Um, I think like you could always tell that he was probably gay, like in the first few seasons,
yeah,
but then it would just like he totally changed his outfits.
yeah,
You know, like it was a little. I guess maybe it was more relaxed since it was embedded with the team. You know, writing about it like like documentary style. I mean, they
yeah.
do this. I mean, there was one for Man City, one. I mean, Arsenal. They've done this where they've had shows and stuff and Hard Knocks in the U.S. and
Yeah,
for football. So
Moneyball. Yeah,
it's normal, but no, I mean like
yeah, yeah. Documentary. Yeah, yeah,
documentaries.
yeah,
So I get it, but it was just. But I liked hippie Trent and
yeah,
his like groovy style and like the shirts he would wear, and
yeah. He went
so
from
I thought,
professional journalist to hippie nomad, like beat journalist, which was
an
great.
unemployed guy like writing a book,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
like someone who got laid off and is not working for a year and is like, I need to write. Oh, I always wanted to write. Like,
I'm gonna work on
uh,
the next great American novel. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, that was my only thing is who would get a spinoff, but I could see all of those really. I hope they don't do it. Just great show. Just let it be. It won a bunch of Emmys. Move on to write something else.
Yeah. Develop something. I mean, Bill Lawrence is good at developing things, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'd watch something that him or Brett Goldstein or Jason Sudeikis did, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Barry time.
Barry. Yeah, let's talk Barry. All right, so let's talk about Barry, right? So Barry, as every other show we've talked about this week, is the series finale. This crazy series, right? Very dark, very different from the other two shows that we've already talked about, right? Succession,
Mhm.
tragedy. Ted Lasso, comedy. Um, Barry, dark comedy, tragedy. It's a mixture of all
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tragedy too. I think that's a good point. Barry, what happens to Barry, right? But um yeah, I think Barry was probably, if I want to say that I think it was probably second best to Succession, but it's probably my favorite. And that's hard to say over Succession. Um, the final season was perfect.
Oh, it was amazing.
I it was one of the most perfect seasons of TV, in my opinion. It was, especially when we've talked about this, I think offline, but I wasn't. I had to kind of I gave up on the first season, and then I had to go back and push through the first two seasons to get to season three, and that to me it took off like. And I've talked to so many people that like, yeah, I watched a few episodes of Barry and never stayed with it. And so that's kind of how I was in the beginning, and then to how it ended to me was just, I mean, the final. I mean, I think after the first season, it really picks up. I mean, it has the world build, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
takes a while to world build in the first season, but uh, it's one of the almost rare shows where it seems to get better every season. Like where
Yeah.
we just talked about Ted Lasso, where it went down every season. Like one, two, three was the best, and
Yep.
even like when you talk about Westworld, I think like one was the best, and then maybe two, four, and three, or
Yeah.
four, two, and three. I think we were at somewhere in there. Yeah, very rarely do you find that like the best season is like four, three, two, one. You
Yeah.
know, at
Yeah.
least for my experience, right? So,
No, I agree.
like, what
And
do you think?
I think the reason Barry has managed to stay good is it's not recycling the same plot line. I mean, Succession, it's always like Ken trying to take down Logan. The kids are always trying to dethrone their father. Great in its own right. I'm not knocking that. Ted Lasso seemed to lose focus and have a lot of fluff, and obviously
Yeah,
Apple was like, "We want more episodes. Throw two extra in there, right?" In the
yeah,
last two seasons, Barry stayed true to its course. 8 episode seasons for all
yeah.
what 4 seasons.
All four.
Not a lot of fluff, pure comedy, dark, pretty dry, but that's where they focused on character development and story arc development and all of these things, right? And I think that's why this show, I think I agree. I love Succession. I got into Succession from the ground floor, watching it when it first came out and being blown away by it. And then it's like House of Cards, where after like season 3, you're like, the fuck is going on again? Like, oh yeah, they're just screwing over his dad. And then you get back
Yeah,
into it, right? But Barry didn't have that for the most part.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I think also Bill Hader like pretty much directed I think all of season four.
yeah.
Um, and he wrote all of season four with
Yeah,
biggest
wrote
Dusty
the whole thing.
McBride, his writing partner. But like, yeah, I mean, he directed every episode, and very rarely in TV shows do you see that where someone directs. I mean, even in Succession, Mark Mylod did a lot of them in the last season, but they usually Jesse Armstrong is the creator, but they have usually multiple directors and get different. I mean, Game of Thrones was big for that, where it was like they had Miguel Sapochnik for like the big fighting scenes. They had, I think, Mark Mylod did some. They had Kerry Fukunawa, which did a lot of different, does a lot of directing. But you have so many different ones. But I think that was also the thing. I think Barry directed most of season 3 and all of season 4, and I think that he was able to tell it in his style, and just even was really good with 3 and 4 too. Except for 4, they stopped after episode 5 because of the writer strike.
Yeah.
But Bill Hader was doing a podcast um, talking about each episode. So he talked about like the scene in this season where the assassin was in the ceiling shooting at the FBI and everything. And then with Fred Armisen's finger or hand getting blown up, right? So like he talked about how they shot that. And it was just like how they kick around the idea, and it's like that would look cool, or that would be different. And it was
Yeah.
just, but it was just, I don't know, it was so well done. I mean, the final is very simple, and
Yeah.
it's, I think in the last episode, NoHo Hank kidnapped Sally, and what's his name? Son's name John.
John. Yes. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
kidnapped him
So,
and taken him to uh no ball. Yeah.
but it's just the brilliance of Barry is just the subtleness of telling like a social commentary and idea without telling it, just showing you, right? Like Ted Lasso, it's like they're cramming a social commentary down your throat like an entire episode.
Yeah.
So like, okay, like Sam, shut up and dribble, and um Colin and Keely and Jack, and like, which is all good. Like we talked about this before. But the first part of the season finale or the series finale, Barry, he walks into like a Kmart or something and says guns or weapons, and they're like, he's walking through the store strapped with multiple weapons, and there's nobody turning ahead.
Yeah.
Like, it's the commentary in society right now with all the laws in different states is like open carry, and you see someone with a gun, and it's like, okay, this is America, and it was
Right.
just like no one even looks, no one stares, no one tries to do anything.
Yeah. Nobody thinks twice
Um,
about it. Yeah.
yeah, it was brilliant. I'm like sitting there uh, as that's happening. He goes and he's trying to get in the car with the, like, he doesn't take him off and put him in the car. He's just like, and I'm like standing up. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is brilliant. Like, it's brilliant. I don't know
It
how to
was so
explain it.
funny.
It's just it's funny. It's smart.
Yeah. The
Um,
fact that he was able to direct the entire season, right? When the creator has the ability to direct it and drive his vision for it,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure there's collaborative efforts as well, but it stays true to the message. I mean, I think that's a part of, like, you remember Ozark. The best episodes of Ozark were when Jason Bateman directed it.
Yeah,
Those were some of the best episodes. When you keep that creative genius in house,
yeah,
it really helps drive the narrative. So a lot of shows these days are doing multiple directors and things like that. I get it, but that's where some of it kind of goes off the rails. But that's how
yeah,
Barry has managed to stay on track.
yeah. And if you really like that style of storytelling, and they do it kind of the same way, where they pick up different styles from different directors, you know, for different scenarios, it you get cohesiveness, right, with having
Yeah.
the same style. And I think that's where like the last two seasons with him directing, you get that same style in every episode, and it's just very succinct, and but it's even just like the little, then you see Noho Hank call um Fuchs, and he's the Raven in the bathtub with his freaking AirPods in, and
Amazing.
he's just
Yeah.
like taking a bath with like candles, and he's like, "Hello," he's just like, it's just there-
So off the wall. Yeah.
this guy's like a killer, no heart trainer of killers, and he's just taking a bath like a normal person, like listening to music or podcasts or whatever. So I don't know. It's just so it's funny, but then Noah Hank gets it's very, and it's almost like I think it was a little longer than 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
they didn't blow out like a whole hour and a half for a
No.
finale. They kept it short and to its like ideals, and Barry's on his way with his weapons to go probably try to kill everybody to get his son back and
Oh yeah.
Sally. And Fuchs shows up with his crew, and they
Yeah.
show they have Sally, and he's like, "Get the boy," and
Yeah.
think when Fuchs like that he has a boy, like you can tell the way he acts, like he doesn't want to harm a child, right?
Yeah.
So like, and I think he sees this as we know that he. I guess we assume that he maybe killed Barry's father or whatever, but Fuchs takes over Barry as a boy for whatever reason. We learned that this season.
Yep.
And so I think he sees that, like, I'm not going to harm this child, but like they have this standoff at NoHo Hank's business, and he
I love it.
like,
It's in the headquarters, not in some warehouse. It's at the headquarters with this
like the
golden
business.
statue. Like,
Yeah. And he's like, basically, like, New Deal, you know, you like killed Cristobal, and
admit it.
uh, when he goes through, he's like picking at NoHo Hank, and it's just Hank breaks down, and, then like fucking Fuchs is like just
Yeah.
like kills NoHo,
Yep.
and everybody shoots each other. And then on the second watch, in the first watch, you see Fuchs on top of the boy,
Yep.
and well, you don't like, or you see them get up or whatever, and everybody else is basically dead. Or the people are alive, and then someone in the crew throws the grenade and kills the other three that are
That
still
was
alive.
hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. Like,
Yeah, but it's Fuchs covering the boy,
yep.
and
He
I didn't
jumped on
notice
top of
that.
him. Yeah.
I didn't, second watch, I noticed him like immediately after, like when it's about after he shot NoHo and everything's about, he goes and jumps on top of the boy while everybody else shoots each other.
Yep.
So he's protecting the kid because he doesn't want to have the kid hurt and give it back to Barry. And then they go outside, and Barry's out there, and it's just subtle. There's no explanation. John goes running out, and Fuchs just, they kind of nod at each other, and he runs back inside.
Yeah.
And so we know Barry knows that Sally had talked to Kusino, so he thinks that um or they go to the hotel.
Yeah. Barry's
And
like, we're getting
Barry's,
the hell out of here. Yeah.
we'll figure it out, we'll run. And she's like, you need to turn yourself in.
Yeah.
And he's like, huh? Like, he's like, I have
But
my
I'm
family back.
redeemed. I did
Yeah,
yeah, I did all of that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, she realized, yeah. So she wakes up and they're gone. Um, and so he thinks he went to Kusino, and Kusino looks like he's about to shoot himself with a gun because he's been accused now of Janice Moss's murder.
Yeah,
And
Jim and the district attorney, yeah, Janice's dad, like hold a press conference and publicly condemned Kusino
yeah,
as like setting everything up for like Janice's death and how he's in with the Chechens and how he like manipulated Barry. He's like, my life is over. And I like how his agent is like, it'll be okay. It'll be
yeah,
okay. I'm gonna go
yeah,
get some food. I'll be
yeah.
back. And he's like got his
I'm,
suitcase.
I'm here with you. He's got a suitcase. He's taking off.
Classic Hollywood. Classic like,
He,
oh, your
he,
shit's going down. I'm out of here.
he opens the door and buries you.
Yeah, he's like, oh, yeah, that was amazing. Yeah.
It's great because it's just like he goes in. He's like, um, John. He starts Kusino. John. What's his wife? Sarah. No, what is it?
Sally.
Sally.
Yeah.
He thinks they're there, and he's like, they're not here. There's no kid here. And he sits down. And he's like, call the cops. Like, I need to turn myself in. And all
Yeah,
of a sudden, you're a gunshot.
he's like, Barry, turn yourself in. Like like
Yeah,
Kusano's going down for something he didn't do, blah, 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 blah. And like you start to see like Barry starts to like turn and
yeah,
understand that he does have to turn himself in. This is his right, this is his punishment. And like Gene was in the bedroom with the rip torn gun that he gave him,
yeah,
which I
yeah,
love that callback. That's hilarious. Yeah, and then Barry gets like shot in the shoulder, right?
yeah, yeah. And it's well, you hear the gunshot at first, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, did Kusino shoot himself in the
Yeah.
room? And then it's like you see him get shot right here. And he's like, I forget what he says. Is like,
He's like, oh wow.
oh wow. And then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah. Yeah. Fade to black. Great little jump. Yeah.
And then you think it's the end of the show, which would have been a great ending.
Would have been
But
totally fine with that. Yes.
yeah, but then they added on, which also was a great ending. And you cut forward to see um, Sally like teaching middle school drama,
Yeah. I think it was
high
middle
school,
school.
middle school,
Yeah.
um, and then John in the audience. And Sally's still very sociopathic, oblivious to things, gets asked out by a new good looking teacher. Is like, no, thank you. It's like, John wants to go stay the night at a friend's, and she says, okay. And then she leaves, and he's like, ready to do this? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh shit, are they going to go like, you know, do something bad?
Go murder that guy that asked out his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like how they like she still has like no maternal like instincts
Yeah.
because like John was like I love you and she was like see you later and like got in the car and that was it and it was just like oh she
Yeah.
still is fucking weird. Yeah,
Yeah. No, she's just all about
herself.
herself.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then,
yeah.
so they go to the
John's
friend's
hanging out with
house,
his
and
buddy. Yeah,
he puts this movie called The Mask Collector. And just it's Barry getting off the bus, going to see Kusno, and like the
yeah. He
guy
gets on the
playing
bus right at
Kusno.
the acting theater and shit.
Yeah.
Like yeah,
And like Barry goes in the office, like he's with the like no Hank is like a buffed up bald guy, like I think I'm assuming it's no Hank, but like one of the Chechenians in
yeah,
the office was like a ripped muscular bald guy.
yeah.
Um and then you find like the story goes where instead of Barry killing Moss, like Barry shows up and Moss is dead, and Kusno did like, you can't tell anybody, Barry. Like
It's
I
at
took
the
you in.
theater.
Yeah,
They're up on stage and they're having this like great monologue fight.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And it's just like he helps them, and then I'm blanking on what leading up, and at the end, it's just like Gene Cousineau is serving a life sentence for the murder of Janice Moss. Barry Bergman is honorable,
Laid
like
to
buried
rest in
in
Arlington
like
National
the same.
Cemetery.
Yeah, just it's just brilliant because it totally
Oh,
takes the entire story of what happened and makes a completely different story out of it. Like
it's so
putting
good.
Kusanao as the mastermind of this when he was just an acting coach getting caught up in all because he took money from Barry.
Yeah, his
But
ego just wrote a check he couldn't cash, and I do love like the whole metaphor of like Hollywood taking a story and not knowing jack shit about what actually happened, and
yeah,
like reframing it to like a theatrical like story. Like we know that Barry never went down like the mask collector, but they're like, all right, so there was this bald Chechen guy, right?
yeah,
But he's not skinny and doesn't wear nice suits. He's this like really muscular guy, and like they just twist everything just to make it fit like societal norms. It's so
yeah,
good
yeah.
how they just like slap that in the face. It was so funny. But yeah, Barry being buried at Arlington in full military honors. I think I texted you like I couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny. Like
Yeah.
Kusanow's fucked. He got and like yeah, and his son's watching it and starts crying at the end of the movie, and it's like, oh, that kid is gonna be a fucking serial killer.
Well, and the interesting thing is like, and that's how it ends. And I'm like, is he crying because he knows that's not the truth, or or does he think that's the truth because Sally, because his dad told him he was like he had all these medals from Vietnam and all that, or not Vietnam, but like
Iraq,
yeah,
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 Afghanistan.
he was a soldier and killed people as a soldier. And Sally's like, no, he's a murderer, like, and I kill people. But does he believe his mom? Like Barry was the engaged father versus what Sally was, right? So what Sally is. So he may be crying because he doesn't know the truth, and to him, maybe that's the truth that he will remember.
I think that's where I was going mentally with it is like the kid's crying because he's so confused. He doesn't
Yeah,
know what's true and what's real, and he didn't know his parents' real name for
yeah,
like 12 years or 8 years, right?
yeah,
And so like then you see this movie about how it like makes his father seem like this like heroic person, but in reality, let's say he remembers at 8 years old that like he was in the middle of a uh, what was it Mexican standoff in the middle of Noho Ball, like
Chechenian standoff.
yeah, Chechnyan standoff, like yeah, like maybe he's just
It's
confused and frustrated that he like the truth isn't out there. I don't know, and that I think we both agree like John's gonna wind up killing somebody.
yeah. No, it made me think when you said Mexican standoff. Um, Kenny Powers in the second episode of Eastbound and Down. He's like, finally, motherfucker, Mexican standoff in fucking Mexico. It's like, been waiting for this. Yeah, it's like,
Oh my god, that's great. What do you think happened to Fuchs after all this? Like he walked back or ran back into the building. What do you think happened with that?
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you could almost have a spinoff of Fuchs because, Barry's dead, NoHo's dead. We know it's Sally and John, but uh, we don't know. Fuchs is the only one we don't know. I mean, I think he's a Raven, right? Like,
Yeah.
so people don't think he's real. The cops, I mean, the whole story with the Raven, he's almost like it's almost like he doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the way they treated his exit is like, is he real? I mean, we know he's real because he was in prison, but
Yeah, yeah.
and but it's almost like he's more of like subconscious, or I mean, he's real, but he's almost like him being real doesn't matter,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or what happens to him doesn't matter because he's just kind of like a guide in the story.
It's almost like the voice in Barry's head, right? He raised him.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
he's taught him all these things, and you could almost say like maybe he's a split personality of Barry because Barry's crazy, but we know he's real to
yeah,
some degree. But he's really the voice in Barry's head for the first 30 years of Barry's life, right? And then he's
yeah,
haunted by
yeah.
that. I think because Jackie and I had this discussion about, does Fuchs like he makes it out alive, right? We assume he's been shot, but he makes it out alive. Uh, does he like become like a good person like now that he like save like does he change in any aspect? And my answer was no. Like he's now like redeemed in the fact that like he's cool with Barry, he saved Barry's son. He's still the Raven. He's still going to become the king of LA in my opinion.
Hmm.
I mean, you
Yeah,
don't come back from chopping four dudes heads off. Like
yeah. I mean, there's also a scenario where you see him run back inside and he cleans up everything and he takes over Cristobal's empire. I mean,
you're right. Yeah. That would be amazing.
there's a new statue next to Cristobal in a tank, like holding his hand, and Barry like sitting on a couch. I don't know. Like,
Oh no, it's the same statue of Cristobal with his hands like this, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and then it's a bronze portion of Noah on the ground, like holding his hand.
yeah,
Like that's just added, but in bronze. So funny.
yeah. Because they don't think the Raven exists. So like,
Yeah.
who is this guy? And he takes over and has a statue to commemorate the shootout that happened in the lobby.
Yeah. So funny. Oh my god, dude.
No, it's a great question because he just disappears into the night and we never see him again.
Yeah, he's the only
So
one really don't know what happens to. Yeah.
yeah, so it's such a good show. Like,
It was so good. Yeah. It was it was the most true to story, true to the character arc, like full development. Whereas like Succession and Ted Lasso kind of went like started to deviate to some degree. And then this came back. This stuck
what?
to the thing like throughout the whole show. Had great, hilarious comedy notes. And we know he was on SNL and he's around all these great comedic writers and stuff. But the show kept the same tone throughout the entire series.
Yeah, and I think this. So I think with Lasso and with Succession, you kind of get a little repetitive loop
Yep.
in some regards. So you get a little hint of that in Barry because he seems to, but in the first two seasons he seems to come out unscathed. But at the end of season three, he gets like caught and thrown in jail. So it's not like you know you think, oh, he doesn't suffer any consequences, and even in the end, he almost doesn't because he dies. But in reality, like he still comes out scot free.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He comes out the
but
hero. Yeah.
so, but yeah, I think it's Succession. You kind of have the same. It's still the 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 people who are going to succeed just shift, and
Yeah.
it goes
And
from
ultimately in
Rome to
Succession, right?
Shiv to Ken
Like,
to Rome to Shiv to Ken, and then at the end, Tom has it, right?
yeah,
But
ultimately, right? Succession was like none of them are going to win. They all won it,
yeah,
and yet not. And it's
yeah.
that kept the theme, but yeah,
But I think in the end, I think Barry is the story of a guy who became it's kind of an allegory, kind of with the war and kind of how the Forever War book, right, for
yeah,
Vietnam. And this is PTSD, coming home, being susceptible or being like engaged in violence. And then
yeah,
he tries to change his life, but in the end, like he's still a killer and he
yeah,
can't. The only way out for him is death. But he tries so hard when he gets that second chance. They move out in the middle of nowhere and they move and trying to raise a family. But in the end, all it takes is for one person to see Kusanow's talking about the movie, and he's like, "Got to go to LA and kill
yeah,
him."
yeah,
There's no like, we have this life, we're out in nowhere, and no one knows us, and
yeah. What do
but
you care, right? You're onto a new life, but not really. Like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so but it's just I don't know, it's such a great show.
Just letting old dogs lie, man. It winds up biting you. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. But any other thoughts on Barry?
No, man, I'm sad.
Yeah.
Bunch of good shows ending. So
What was your
uh,
favorite Barry moment? in the series? That's a tough one to ask because we are talking over like 4 seasons. It's hard to remember, but there were so many great comedic moments.
So the first thing that pops into my head um, is the Chad Kroger, the
Oh,
like the coffee shop.
yes.
I forget the name of but that episode, uh,
Beignets by Mitch. Yeah.
Beignets by Mitch. Just a genius of how they use people in the show, and like if you don't know Chad and JT going deep, and like they go to city council meetings and for like or surfer bras and like just just that part. And I think that same episode where Barry's on the motorcycle.
Yes.
And that's one of the best episodes of TV where they just follow him on the motorcycle, and then the guy shooting on the roof. And I mean, there's just so many. I mean, even that is funny. Like even just when Barry's like, "Oh wow!" Like when he gets shot, and then
Yeah.
he's like, look, like smiling, looking at Kusino, and he gets shot in the head. Like it's
Yeah.
just, oh, and just everything with NoHo Hank. The whole, I I would say the funniest thing is the Dave and Buster's,
Oh,
like
amazing.
with their meeting and Dave and Buster's, and in this season how the whole crew of they're like touring the house and they're like, ooh, like,
It's the
but
side
they take,
commentary, right? It's these throwaway conversations that never get
yeah,
written in movies or TV shows that when they actually do, like, if you think about it, it could be hilarious. Like the whole Dave and Buster's thing, and even the raid on Dave and Buster's, how they think that's their headquarters, and they go in, it's like
yeah,
there's like everybody's wearing a Raiders jersey except for one guy who's wearing a Texans jersey. Why the hell is or no an Oilers
oh
jersey?
Oilers, yeah,
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 like just these conversations that never happen because we're all caught up in the dialogue of shit that doesn't matter. That could be hilarious. Like the guy
yeah,
trying to sell the minivan, explaining how the front seat is so comfortable because he cheated on his wife and now he's sleeping in the minivan, and then that leads to like him shooting the guy on top of the dealership with a shotgun.
yeah,
Throwaway conversations are hilarious.
yeah. No, and that's what it is. It's just almost like unintentional comedy, and it's
Yeah,
just something like where they're like, "Oh, this will be funny," and then other shows will be like, "Oh, well, let's cut it out for time, or let's do something more substantial." And
yeah,
it's like, but it's just the little things like that
yeah,
that are
yeah,
funny, or even just like even just you know Barry, like Moss leaving the stuff for Barry to get out.
yeah,
Of the house once he's convinced Kusino was in charge of it, and then he like cuts his hand, and then he's like, "Oh shit!" and then he just like passes out. He gets
yeah,
all the
yeah,
blood. It's like just stuff you would like in most shows he would just cut his way out and he'd go charging out of the house. But this
yeah,
he's like cuts his way out. He cuts his hand and he's like washing it or putting water in it. He's like, oh,
yeah.
it's just like it's
it,
just
it's big TV shows and movies, everything is from the protagonist view, right? So it's all about like them in the moment. They're stressed out, they're freaking out, they're trying to make their way. Like imagine that motorcycle scene where he like crashes and like runs to the dealership. Most movies would be from his perspective where he crashes and you see him like running and it'd be like a
yeah,
POV cam and then he's like runs inside. But instead it's like no, 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 no. Imagine that from somebody who doesn't matter,
yeah,
just like it could be you at a dealership one day and that shit actually happens. That's the kind of
yeah,
like cinematic thing and like narrative that they brought to the show is not all of it is from their perspective. Just imagine
yeah,
you're some random schmuck in a beignet's place and like
yeah,
these guys are telling you their life story. Like it's so funny.
yeah,
That's the
and just
genius
how
of it.
and Cristobal's idea to just like start a sand company and go
Yeah.
legit, and
Yeah.
it and then Hank ends up getting rich off of that. He kills like basically we're criminals, and then he's a legit
Yeah.
sand person, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Just
just normal
imagine
life circumstances that
you're the
are funny.
waitress at Dave and Buster's and you got a group of like 12 guys. Like it's hilarious to think that way.
Yeah, I'll miss it. I got to do a rewatch, and because
Yeah.
I completely forgot almost the first couple of seasons just
Oh
because
yeah, it's
of
hard to remember those. Yeah.
the last two were so good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, Barry was good. I mean that was episode 8, right? The series finale. It's done. We know they're not going to bring anything back for that. The episode was titled "Wow," which I think it was. Wow, after Barry getting shot in the shoulder. Oh wow! Like,
And I think we both predicted he was going to die. I
yeah,
think that was. I think we kind of sensed that was how it would end.
I
So
do like how they did the movie The Mask Collector at the end, because I think we joked about if Barry lived, he would star as himself in his own biopic opposite of Daniel Day-Lewis. So they still kind of picked up some scraps of the things we were thinking of. So that was great, but gonna miss the show. I mean, it was 4 years of just great dark humor. So
yeah,
HBO's got a big block, and let's hope they're bringing some big time stuff over the next couple of years. Because now I don't know what we're gonna do with this stuff being over. So
yeah, they got to get something good on Sunday night again. And there
yep,
was 3 shows in a row I watched on Sunday in the fall or in the springtime. So
yep,
we got some big shoes to fill.
big time. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Any other thoughts?
No, that's it. We talked a lot about Lasso and Ted Barry,
And Ted Barry. Yeah,
Barry Lasso and Ted Bundy,
that's right. Yeah, Ted Bundy's close. Yeah.
Ted Berkman, Barry Lasso.
Well, yeah,
What was the
appreciate.
name? What was his
Okay.
real name? He gave
Oh,
Kusnau a
Barry
different
Block.
name, right? Barry Block. That's right. They didn't use it after the first season or two, right? It became
Yeah, that was his
went by
stage name,
Barry
was Barry
Berkman.
Block.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Blockman or Block, one of those. Yeah,
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 it was
yeah.
so ridiculous. Yeah. God. But yeah, appreciate everybody for kicking it with us this week. We talked about Ted Lasso ending and Barry ending, and the last episode we talked about Succession ending. So there's going to be some new shows on the horizon. We're going to probably talk about Silo, this next episode, as well as Jury Duty. Chuck's going to get caught up on that. We're going to have to find some non-mainstream items to watch. So I think it'll be good. But be sure to check us out, all the podcast platforms. Check out our website, kickingitmedia.com. We'll throw some blog posts up there, throw some polls on Instagram at Can We Kick a Pod. Be sure to check in next week. And as Chuck likes to always say,
Mahalo.